you guys hear me? Okay, cool. I think we're about ready to get started. I think we're good-ish on time. We got 45 minutes, so we're going to try to get through all of it. If you're here for the OneDrive Sync talk and learn about team site sync and all of that, you're in the right place. If you're here for the Windows 10 security kernel 400 level course, you will probably be mildly disappointed. But feel free to stay anyway, because it's going to be pretty good. My name is Jason Moore. I'm the group program manager on our OneDrive Sync clients and OneDrive Consumer Service. And today I have with me Ed Averitt, who's one of our talented program managers, who'll be doing some demos. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what's been going on with OneDrive Sync over the last year, really since last Ignite, and what's kind of coming up over the next couple of months, some of the big capabilities that are rolling out, and some of the features that we've been asked for quite some time. So actually, just to start it off, how many people came to my Ignite session last year? It was like a handful, maybe. Oh, maybe like 6, 5, 7%. So if you came to the session last year, if you watched it online, you probably heard me spend a lot of time apologizing about the state of OneDrive Sync.
You guys did that.
Yeah, that's. I came back to a second one though, and I think that's an exciting thing. But really, the state of the world was one where we just weren't in a place that we were entirely proud of the product we had. It didn't do everything that you guys needed it to do, and it wasn't appropriately at the level of reliability and performance that it needed to have. So I promised a new sync client that would do all of that. We talked a lot about how we would build this new sync client out of what we had learned building a OneDrive consumer sync client running on hundreds of millions of desktops for consumer users. And we would bring that to business and bring that to scale there. We had a preview of that in the fall last year, which a lot of you tried out, and thank you very much for doing that, because with that feedback, with the telemetry we got out of that, we were able to provably get to a point we knew was reliable enough to actually ship it out there. And we did. That was actually a great moment for us as a team, because it really allowed us to say, okay, we have put the cornerstone in place. We have a sync client we can rely on that we feel great about, that actually works exactly as advertised, and really can deliver the goods. So since then, we've been working on a number of things really driven based on that feedback. One of the things that is first kind of note in talking about the sync client is when we shipped it at the end of last year, we did a lot of things that were really kind of focused on making sure we had the core basic right thing. But we also put in a bunch of controls. We'd started with registry keys and MAC defaults that essentially prevented anyone from going and using this without an IT administrator rolling it out. And the idea behind that was, hey, this would be a great way to actually prevent users from going and putting this on their machine in that first version and getting into an unhealthy state before we knew it was ready, before you had approved it. And you quickly told us to stop doing that. So we did in April. We also shipped this first version without Windows 8.1 support. In fact, I announced it at last Ignite that we wouldn't have Windows 8.1 support. And I got feedback at Ignite, in the talk, at the booth, through the summer, through the fall, the preview program, that wasn't good enough. We really needed to have 8.1 support. And in April, we shipped 8.1 support. It's been one of our fastest growing endpoints. We also shipped without Office Sync integration. And what this was is the ability to actually have the Office client richly know about the files you had in sync and be able to do interesting things with them. For example, if you're working on a OneDrive document in Word, you'd be able to go and click Share. We didn't have that when we first shipped. And we added that also in the spring with the latest update to Office 2016. You can also do things like the MRU. If you stopped working on one particular device with a file that you'd sync there, any other Office endpoint you go to, you can immediately resume on that document, whether or not you're syncing it. So our Office integration and that rich Win32 client integration came along in a really big way. Probably the thing that I'm most excited there is the co-auth. It turns out that many of the documents we put in the cloud, we're working on with others. And when you don't have co-authoring, you have conflicts. And one of the great things about our sync capabilities here, something that no one else has, is that ability to avoid all of those conflicts by allowing you to co-author with others. It's built into the sync client and built into Office. And so that came along as well in the spring. We also focused on a number of customer user experience improvements. Some of the key ones are up here on the slide, and I'll talk through them, but there's been a lot of them we've gone through that really just were about removing those last little vestiges of problems or things that got in the way of the experience. Easy sign-in setup is probably the one that we talked about the most. If you ran the first version of the client, you probably had the experience where it said, hey, put in your Microsoft account. And you said, well, which Microsoft account? And depending on which button you'd clicked on, we meant different Microsoft accounts. We meant that Microsoft account you used at home, but sometimes we meant that Microsoft account we still call AAD, or your Azure Active Directory credentials. And if some of you have had those accounts for a very long time, they might even be the same email address with different passwords. And in all of those cases, we just ran into a lot of dead ends. So we removed that and instead had a new experience come that really kind of made it simpler. You simply put in your email address and we help you figure out the right one. If there's any question of which particular account because it's the same one, we actually have the UI that disambiguates that as you go through the flow. And that helped a lot with our sign up and setup. We've seen things really take off. Pause Sync was probably the single most requested user feature out of the old Groove client for us to add back. And pause is an interesting one. For a lot of these capabilities, we've actually stopped and kind of said, well, what's the core scenario here? What's the feature? Because it turns out, interestingly enough, one of our top customer problems with the old Sync client was people would work on a document and then go look it on the website and not find it, or not find the version that they'd just completed and spent 6 hours editing. So they would call support and they'd say, OneDrive, Microsoft, where is my file? How are you not syncing it? This Sync client is broken. And through a couple hours of debugging and figuring it out, it turned out they'd paused the Sync client, and the Sync client was merrily just waiting to go do something, be useful to you, but just quietly sitting there in the background and not syncing. And so easy resolution to the problem, but awful user experience. We know that when we look at pause, there's actually a couple of key scenarios people are really going after. The two major ones that we find in spades are first, hey, I'm just rearranging things on the disk. So you might be reorganizing a folder structure and you want to get all the files in the right place and then you want to sync. You don't want to be interrupted with that. It's a normal kind of thing that people like to do. Or you might be on a cross-country flight to come to a conference and the in-flight Wi-Fi is not quite up to stuff, so you can do that and surf the web. And in both those cases, we think we actually have a much better answer today now in the Sync client. You can right-click anywhere and say, hey, I want to pause. But instead of pause and then I have to remember to come back to it, I tell the Sync client how long I want to be paused for. Maybe it's 2 hours, maybe it's 8 hours, maybe it's 24 hours. But it's those right metrics that make sure that at the end of the day, you don't have to worry about getting back into a healthy state. We're not going to depend on you remembering every single thing you did, especially when you're tired and busy and going through things. The Sync client will put itself back into that state just on time. The last one I'll mention here is our integrated customer support. If you've used this, I hope it's been an interesting experience that's actually helped you a lot with the client. Today, we have the ability fully rolled out where you can right-click on our sys-tray and report a problem. Now, this is something you absolutely have control over. You can decide, I don't want you involved in supporting my end users at all. Totally reasonable capability. It's available via GPO to block. But if you allow it, a couple of things really interesting things happen for us. First, our time to discover and resolve issues goes way down. Because as soon as the first person hits a problem, they can report it to us. They can write in all the capabilities, all the problems they had with the capabilities, what they were trying to do, and that immediately gets cut into a support ticket our team goes and follows up on. But second, we're able to do it much better than we ever have before. There's no back and forth of asking for logs and figuring out all the details. The diagnostics we need are automatically collected, meaning that as soon as we've got an engineer actually looking at that problem, they're able to dive in and actually figure it out. And of course, third, it brings the pain to us. We love knowing exactly what people are going through. It gives us great sensitivity for the challenges that customers can have. And so we think this is actually one of the better ideas we've had, one of the better implementations we've put together, something that we're continuing to evolve. But it's now fully rolled out, and we're starting to really collect a lot of really great experience around how to support the product and just make it more robust in the face of that. Okay, so that's stuff we've done over the course of the last year since shipping the new Sync client. I think it's more exciting maybe to talk a little bit about what's coming next. I'll start with something that we're actually going to go into a deep dive later with the Sync deployment session coming up tomorrow morning. But a couple of the key things we're really focused on right now is making deployment easier, faster, and quieter. If you've deployed the Sync client, you probably sent me feedback saying it wasn't as quiet as it needs to be. I'd like people to get this thing deployed in the right ways or not have them change their behaviors to use it. We hear you, and we're working on it. First, we've been rolling out our new automatic bandwidth control. If you've deployed the Sync client for the first time and it's the first time you're using OneDrive for Business, you're probably uploading a lot of data in that initial round. If you've got maybe a branch office with 100 people and they've got a small pipe coming out of that office, an appropriate one for most of the work they're doing, having Sync turned on for all of them, going full blast, uploading 100 terabytes of data can really damage the network's performance. And so the automatic bandwidth control allows you to actually set intelligent limits on that. And the way that works is we actually go and sample the network as we're running and make sure that we're never exceeding certain limits on it. So you could actually get two kind of features out of that. One, when you actually turn this on, we'll be respectful of the network. Every device will be thoughtful about not abusing what's going on. But two, because it's automatically testing it, as time opens up, maybe folks go to lunch at the same time and there's a lot more bandwidth, or more likely overnight when people leave their computers, there's an opportunity for us to get much faster, leverage better that infrastructure you have, and get you into sync in a much sooner state. One of the key ones that we've also heard a lot is with our Mac client. If you have deployed the Mac client today, you know you get it from the Mac App Store, and that works fine for a lot of users. But for many of you that manage thousands and thousands of Macs, you've been very clear that that does not fit a modern definition of managing the Mac client. And so we've added our Mac client deployment package. It'll be in preview very shortly. What this means is we'll have a package that you can actually go and take and use tools like Casper to deploy in your network. It should work really across all the ones you care about, and it'll actually make it a lot easier for you to get the Sync client out there to your customers and manage the updates for them. There's a lot more on this one. I actually don't want to go too much in depth. We have a huge session tomorrow with Pat and Tony, who are in the audience right here, that we're going to go through a lot of the guidelines on deployments, a lot of our pro tips, things we've learned, kind of the best cases you want to end up in. Pat has become one of our SCCM experts, so if you're using that and want to know more, we'll go through that in depth. But there's a lot as part of that that we think will be really useful for you. On the key user experience improvements, if you went to Jeff's session yesterday, or some of the morning sessions today, we've started showing off one of our new features we're really quite proud of. We call it the Activity Center. Now, this Activity Center is really about answering a couple questions. First, hey, what's going on with Sync? It's actually something I get asked a lot. People go, well, it was spinning, but what files are syncing? If there's a file that's not syncing right now, how do I know? Where do I go see that? So the Activity Center answers that question of what's happening right now with Sync. But it also answers, well, what just happened? What was recently going on? And when you go scroll through it, you'll see things like when files were added, whether they were uploaded from this machine or downloaded to this machine from the cloud, and even things like deletes. It's one of the most common requests we get is, well, did I delete that or did someone else? Where did that delete come from? We'll tell you, it's right there in the Activity Center. You can easily find out. This is one that will continue to evolve, but so far is actually, as we've been rolling it out internally, has gone over very well. We're really excited about it. Probably next up to talk about with QUX improvements and kind of reinforce is critical for us, pound and percent and longer file paths. This is one that we've talked about for quite a bit. I see some folks laughing in the crowd. Yes, no, I am not going to ask you to rename all your pound and percents. That is not a solution. We will support pound and percent, and we will make it work great. And we're also going to support longer file paths. For those of you that might have used our OneDrive Consumer Sync client, today that's all supported, and we've learned a lot from doing that. We're going to be rolling a lot of those same improvements into the OneDrive for Business and SharePoint services. Oh, that's okay. You can clap, please. Clapping is good. Wow, that's the first one, huh? That's okay. We'll go with it. Let's talk about some security controls. So I've talked a lot about features that we've built, a lot of capabilities we've added, controls we've added, but we haven't really talked about security. And security is one of the cornerstones of Office 365. When we talk about trust, we really mean it. 3 items that I'll kind of call out here coming soon. First is our local data loss prevention work with Windows Information Protection. How many folks actually have heard about Windows Information Protection? Okay, a couple, actually a little better than I thought. Yeah. So this is a new capability in the latest version of Windows that provides MDM in Windows. And what that means is an enlightened app, like the OneDrive Sync client, can take advantage of controls that tell you things like, hey, when people download their OneDrive for Business files to this machine, don't let them leave unencrypted. If someone wants to copy it out, here are the controls that I'm going to put on that. Don't allow them to do these things, or if it's appropriate, allow them to do it within these controls and rules. That's available in the Sync client right now. If you have the latest version of Windows, you're able to take advantage of this. This is a really exciting one because it's a really new base capability coming to the PC that's never been there before. Conditional access is another one you've probably heard a lot about as we talk about Office 365. Conditional access is really about controlling who, what, when, why, and where of access to your actual OneDrive. We've supported this in our mobile clients and website, and we're now bringing that support to the Sync client. You'll be able to apply the same policies that you do to any of those other endpoints to our Sync client and roll those out. And that's available in preview now. We'll be rolling that out through the next couple of weeks and shipping it at end of year. And then kind of near and dear to my heart is RMS support. For those of you who already leverage some of our rights management capabilities at Microsoft, you know that they are an incredibly powerful tool. And they're one of those powerful tools for that content and data that is just so sensitive, you have to treat it with the utmost respect and utmost care. We're going to bring the support for doing that to the sync client. So you'll be able to sync your RMS files in a way that's reliable, secure, and robust. That's a big one that we get asked for a lot, especially with content that is just too volatile to otherwise allow leaving any security boundaries. So those are kind of some of the features coming outside of Team Site Sync. Let's talk a little bit about Team Site Sync. As we approach Team Site Sync, this is probably the #1 ask we had coming last year out of Ignite, was great, you're solving this for OneDrive for Business. What about Team Sites? That's wonderful you're doing that for the files that I put in my hard drive that I'm working on. That's a good feature. I love that feature. But please, my teams collaborate in Team Sites. Make it work. And so we're doing that. We're bringing all the same capabilities and all the same energy we've put into making a great sync client apply to SharePoint. That means the reliability, the performance improvements we've had over the last year in particular will all come there, as well as making sure that you don't have to retrain your users. When you use sync, you will do the same thing you've ever done before. You'll go to the team site, you'll click the sync button, and you'll start working with your content. It'll just be faster, more reliable, and a lot more feature-rich. We're doing that on Windows and the Mac. So this is the first time ever we've had Team Sites supported on the Mac. We're really excited to see that show up. I know that people have kind of worked, oh good, like Mac users. Awesome. So that coming to the Mac is really critical, and we'll be bringing that same day and date with the Windows client. That's not something we're going to leave behind. We'll make sure it comes along in a great way. We're also supporting your groups and shared folders. One of the most common questions about Team Sites is always, well, what about? And usually that's about groups, because groups get Team Sites as well. We make that all work natively. It's actually a really seamless experience. And shared folders in OneDrive for Business. It turns out that in OneDrive for Business, people share all the time, often in smaller groups than they might do in a team site, but on the way to that more large-scale production kind of collaboration. So we'll support that natively in there, just for you. That's goodness. And then, of course, like one of the things actually I hear a lot, especially at a conference like Ignite, is from people who have multiple accounts. A lot of folks, they've got their one business account or their one work account. But if you're a consultant or you work with a consulting agency, often the way you work is you have multiple accounts and multiple tenancies. We hear that. It's actually a critical feature, and you also get that capability in there. If you're signing in with your Contoso account and whatever Fabricam account, those things work. They're kept separate. We don't have any leakage between them, but it enables you to actually have any of those things show up. My good friend Omar, I think, does this with his PTA and with his work account at Microsoft, and it's a really critical feature to have. When we talked about the OneDrive for Business rollout for Sync last year, one of the critical features we brought was the notion that you could migrate seamlessly from the existing client. So if you had already set up OneDrive Sync, and you already had your users syncing their files, you were not going to be faced with the problem of resyncing petabytes upon petabytes of data. That's no fun, that's no good. And so we brought this migration capability that silently allows a takeover. When you installed the new OneDrive for Business Sync client, it would talk to the old Sync client, they'd negotiate for a bit, go out for coffee, but what you'd end up with is files on your machine that were exactly the ones that were in the cloud without having to resync anything. We're doing the same thing with Team Sites. And we'll do this team site by team site. So as you begin rolling this client out, you're never blocked on waiting for some massive migration of data or some massive network challenge. If you're using the existing Groove's legacy Sync client today, you'll be able to move to the new Sync client without a problem. We'll, of course, bring selective sync. One of the features probably the most talked about that we had in the OneDrive Sync client has been this ability to choose what you sync and bring down to your machine. That capability also comes to team sites. That's exciting. That's a righteous feature. It's a good thing for us to have. But we're going a little bit further on 2 counts. First is, if you've ever shared a team site and you've had different levels of permissions, you know that when you sync it, you get these weird phantom folders. Well, we're getting rid of that. We won't have that anymore. And second, when you do selective sync, any place you want to start in the tree is where we'll put you at the root. We're not going to make you go sync some large team site and sync some subfolder, and then every time you want to get to it, click, 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 click all the way through. And so selective sync really enables us to have a much speedier access that's appropriate to each of those devices. And of course, it's per device. On your desktop, you may decide to sync everything you possibly can. You have all the storage in the world, great. And on your laptop, maybe you don't have that storage, and you're just going to sync the folders that you need to take with you. One of the major examples for us here today is we've been syncing this large team site that we do for planning all of Ignite. It has presentation, folders. It has a whole bunch of other content in it. But I only need the PowerPoint decks. That's the stuff I wanted on the plane. That's the stuff I wanted to be able to read and access to, and I was working on. So I didn't have to sync all 12 gigabytes. I could just sync the couple hundred megs that were those presentations. And that's what Selective Sync enables. Our Office integration was something that we talked about for OneDrive for Business is critical, but it doubles down when you're talking about team sites. It turns out that people share files for a reason. They want to work on those files. They want to collaborate on those files. And when you have the power of the rich Office clients working against that, you can actually work on your files simultaneously without running into dreaded conflicts and lots of files to resolve those issues afterwards. Or, one of my favorites is people emailing back and forth to say, okay, I'm done with the file, now you can work on it. We enable that to be completely seamless with our Office integration. And of course, the most recently used list, sharing, and all those other capabilities that comes from Office knowing about the file in the cloud, working seamlessly there. And then kind of the last thing I'll mention here in team sites before we move into demos is we get a lot of these things where we've had kind of weird limitations. So one for last year that we removed is we now support 10 gigabyte files instead of 2 gigabyte files on OneDrive for Business with the new sync client. We got rid of the 20,000 file limit. I was just talking with someone today who was doing about 200,000 files in their OneDrive for Business. There is just a much, much higher scale capability in the system. And we're doing the same thing with team sites. We'll no longer have the 5,000 file limit. You can put as many files as you need in there. If you heard Jeff yesterday, we announced supporting 25 terabytes for your team sites, and we challenge you to go and actually put that all in. This is, all right, you can clap for it. It's good. So this is a key capability for us and all that, and just making this seamless and no longer putting weird prompts and problems in your way to be able to collaborate. I'm going to ask Ed to come on up on stage and help me out here with some demos. And by help me out, yay, Ed.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, good. So, can I help?
We talked about this.
Yeah.
Remember, I said it was a bad idea?
I'd love
This
to
is
be
awkward.
helpful. Yeah. Ed works for me, so it's really awkward.
So you're going to help?
Yes, I'm going to help.
Okay, I think I know how to, okay, first job.
Yes.
Go grab a seat.
I will do that.
All right, so Jason did a great job of actually talking about a lot of the stuff that is showing up for you right now. And I'm going to go ahead and walk you through some of the most important scenarios that we see with adding sync and team sites together. And the best news is everything that you see demoed today is either working on your machines right now, and you can go give it a try, or it's rolling into preview right now or in the next few weeks. So this is all very real code, and hopefully everything goes fine with that. The first thing I'm going to do is talk through one of the most common scenarios we see with team sites. Because one of the things we thought a lot about when we added team sites and shared folders into sync is all of us work different ways. There are big team sites, there's little team sites, there's team sites with a few people on it, there's team sites with 100 people on it. And we really need to enable each of you to be most productive and empowered in the way that you work. You can see a lot. Jason and I work very differently, but we're able to actually collaborate through sync quite easily. So I'll go to the place near and dear to my heart. I'm a sync guy. I open up File Explorer. In this case, I already have my OneDrive for Business set up. You can see the Contoso account right here. Everything's in sync because we have built a reliable sync client, and you have it. I'm also going to call out a few little things we've added to kind of round out the feature set. I can actually right-click in the nav pane and just hit View Online. And what that's doing, that's taking me to the web view of my OneDrive for Business. And you've seen in a few of the keynotes already that we've done a lot to simplify this view, as well as bring the view of all your files together. You see here, I have this sites list here, which is my favorite set of sites. And it's going to give me a very file-centric view of that. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the Resources team site. And it's showing me all the files that are possible for sync. And I could actually just as easily do this if I'm used to the team site's web view. You see up here, I can actually go to this site. But hey, I'm a sync guy. Everything starts from sync for me. I'm just going to hit the sync button. And from here, this is another one. I know a few of you were at Jason's talk. This used to be this horribly scary dialogue that actually pasted about a 300-character URL of, do you want to grant permissions for that? And that was just one where we're like, that's not the thing we want to show our users. We want to be really simple and clean. If like, you have a website that wants to talk to the OneDrive app, let's go ahead and enable that. Now, as soon as I click yes, the first thing it's giving me the power to actually control what's syncing here. Now, this is a pretty shallow team site with a lot of people on it, so I don't see any folders here, but I'll get into that in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and start syncing. And as soon as that pairing starts, you see here, I get a notification that says, hey, this exists on the device. And I actually want to call something out here that you're really never supposed to do in a demo. Everything here is in sync. That was in about 10 seconds. Since we first shipped in December, we have more than doubled performance for both uploads and downloads across every size file type. We are continuing to invest in performance because we know the biggest job of sync is to get in sync and get out of the way. You will keep seeing us improving this. But hey, that was really fast, and I'm glad that worked. Now, okay, Jason, you wanted to help. It's your big moment. Have you finished working on the proposal that we're collaborating on?
Yes, I have added some really important changes.
Okay, I'm a little worried now. Okay. Go ahead and click on that. I'm launching Desktop Office here, near and dear to my heart. As an IW, I spend tons of time in here. And it's taking a little bit longer than I want.
That usually doesn't help.
There we go. So now I've actually launched Word straight from the OneDrive Sync client. And I was in my sync namespace. Now we've got a little bit of a glitch here that I'll go ahead and talk about. Little demo fail. The OneDrive Sync client directly integrates with Desktop Office. So what we'll see here in a second, and again, Team Site Sync is just in preview, which is going on here. Oh, there you go. Now I'm syncing. Let's see if that works again. Now, and see, right here, I see Jason Moore, the beloved person who has now edited my doc. So it finally worked. Now, as we're saying, Microsoft builds the only sync solution in the world that directly integrates with Office. This means if you care about collaboration, if you and your customers use Desktop Office, if you are in Word and you want to collaborate and be effective, OneDrive for Business and Team Sites and Desktop Office is for you. Now we have this great capability, and I see right here, I've got some changes coming in. Oh, Jason?
Yeah.
So you changed the title?
Yep. I just needed that extra push.
Okay. I think I know how to nuance your feedback. Do you mind if I just handle your feedback and we'll go ahead and send it on?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think I really know what to do with this. So I'm going to go here. All right. It's perfect. Jason, thank you. You always add value. I love it. Now, when I talk about Desktop Office integration, Word is just one part. I spend the majority of my day in Outlook responding, sharing. And when we talk about that, a lot of the work we want to do with both Team Sites and Sync is integrate into your existing workflows and power them through the cloud. We're creating new features, but we also have to meet users where they are. So both Emma and Tony really wanted to see that proposal, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the file. Now I go here to attach file, which has existed in Office forever, and if you look, all the files in this dropdown are actually cloud-powered. Because there's deep integration with Office and the Sync client, it knows to be able to point to the link in the cloud. And this has two huge wins for people. First, I'm not clogging everyone's inbox. How many times do you have megabytes upon megabytes upon gigabytes of attachments in your email client, and then everyone else you send it to? With this, I'm just sending an edit-only link. And the other power of that is, undoubtedly, this file is going to change. I'm sure Jason will edit it again. But now, all of us actually have the latest and greatest version because we're using Desktop Office, because we're using Sync, and we don't end up with 100 different versions of this, and I'm up at 3 in the morning pasting in everyone's feedback to one doc, which I'll send out again. That is a huge power and time that we are trying to save each and every one of you. Now, that's one example of a team site. There's also team sites with just a couple people, and that's absolutely a real scenario. So I'm going to go back here and explore. I have been syncing a team site for the last couple of weeks that Jason and I have actually been working on to actually plan this Ignite deck. And Jason, it looks like you added a whole bunch of content.
Yeah, this is important stuff.
Okay. So I'm going to go here. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh, Jason, this is 11,000 files and folders.
The very important files to me, Ed.
Jason, we have like 15 minutes left. Can I delete this?
Sure. No.
No? Wait, what's this one?
That's an important morale video.
This is an 8 gig movie called Jason's Karaoke Greatest Hits.
Yeah. It's 8 gigs.
Okay. Well, I'm 4K. Yeah. Thanks for that. So Jason really wants me to keep these. I really don't want these on my machine. I don't want them on my laptop. I don't want them on my desktop. I'm really not sure I want this video. So the thing I can do is I can just go ahead and click on Settings, and I go to my Account tab. My Account tab actually shows everything I'm syncing. It shows my OneDrive for Business. It shows any team site. It shows the shared folder. And I'm going to go here, and I can see immediately the size, which is 16.3 gigs. It seems a little excessive. And now we see the power of selective sync. I'm just going to come here, and Jason's favorite folder, and a second favorite folder, and they will no longer be syncing on my machine. He can keep them and work on them, but I don't have to pay the price there. And that way, I can do the work I need, and he can do the work that he needs to do. Now, there we go. Good. I hope you're happy we can still work together. So that's kind of the first round of like empowering people to do sync. But one of the things we've heard time and time again, Jason heard a lot last year, OneDrive and sync need to be everywhere that you work. And that is something we take really seriously. So I'm going to switch over to my Mac. All right. So I also want to say everything you just saw on that PC, all that team site integration, works exactly like that on the Mac. And I'm even going to show you some new things that also work that way on the PC. So first and foremost, I want to go in, call it a thing. You see in the favorites view, I actually have my OneDrive for Business here. We've also added sync overlays through a Finder extension. So all that goodness of seeing the green check mark, seeing what's in progress, seeing if you have any errors, all works on Mac now. But there's also one more piece that's worth demoing. And like Jason mentioned, we heard this loud and clear. This is the App Store. I am not signed in, but I have OneDrive. It is fully working. It is updating to actually have the latest sync preview bits. If you swing by the booth later today, we'll show you how you get those too. And the way I am able to do that is if you take a look here in my downloads, I actually have the OneDrive PKG. This is the thing we're going to be sharing out. You will be able to deploy and manage a standalone install without the App Store. And if that's the scenario you need, it works. It works great. It works with Casper. Tony and Pat, I believe, are going to do a great Casper demo tomorrow. I highly recommend it. But I know what all of you were thinking. I said team sites, and I haven't showed a single team site syncing on Mac. So let's go back. Let's go back to the web. So again, cross-browser friendliness. I'm in Safari here, and this is actually my OneDrive for Business. You see that sites view. Now, one of the things in talking about where team sites come in all different sizes and shapes, I have a lot of team sites where it's a huge amount of people, and I only care about a very small amount of it. So I'm going to go here into New Products. And I am a very small part of this team. And so if you go here into Custom, into Global, into North America, let's resort into the USA, into the West, into Washington, into King County, into Bellevue. I can't do this every day. This will drive me insane. And in the old model, I would have to pay that 10 clicks every single time, every single day that I had to go work with this content. But now we allow you to sync where you are. So you still see, I have the sync button. I can go ahead and click it. Again, also, if I wanted to actually not sync the in progress folder here, I could choose that because syncing in place is actually additive with selective sync. It's also worth calling out one of the other little features that we added that we know is super important. You see size here. So especially on my Mac, on my 128 gig Mac that I've more than 2/3 filled, I can understand how much space this will take up. And I can choose not to sync it if I want. And there you go. I start syncing. And now you see I have this Contoso folder here. And right there, there's the Bellevue School District. I no longer have to, there we go, we can clap for that. That's 8 clicks a time. If I do that 10 times a day, that's 80 clicks a day. Like, imagine how much coffee I can go drink instead of actually just clicking. Yeah, I'm from Seattle. That's what we do. Now switching gears a little bit, talked a lot about team sites. I kind of want to walk you through both the shared folder flow as well. So let's go back. And again, I'm at my ODB site, and we've done a lot to both enhance some features and simplify the UI. So I'm going to go into shared with me. So Jason, you shared a folder with me, didn't you?
Yeah, stuff.
Really important stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need you to read it all.
You created a folder that says things Ed should read.
Yeah.
This is like 200 files?
Yeah, I didn't have time to read it, so I put it in there.
Hey, when do you want me to read these by?
Well, we're flying back on Friday, right?
Yeah.
Have them all read by Friday.
Okay. Thanks for that, Jason. So, you saw that? I was actually able to go ahead and just click sync and begin syncing it. And one of the other things you'll see is now I can actually see through the Activity Center, Sync is actually downloading all this. And again, I talked about performance, performance, performance. I'm not supposed to do this. This is about a 100 meg folder, it looks like. And look how fast that is going. I can now answer the question of exactly what files are being worked on and which ones are being queued up. Now, and it's one of those things, as much as possible, we want to demystify sync. We want it to be the thing that works in the background that you never have to question. And we're just trying to do those little investments here and there that give you confidence and give customers confidence. Now, I got to ask Jason, now that I go back to my Contoso folder. Oh, so there it is. I see Jason Moore, things I should read. See it, all of that? It's in sync. Jason, did you share this read-only?
I don't recall. I mean, no, but
okay.
should I?
So good news, I know exactly what to do with these.
Oh, good.
Okay. Let's see, Command delete, and we're good. So the good news is, by general availability in December for team sites and shared folders, what will happen is we'll support read-only sync. And Jason will have probably started sharing things with me read-only, but in the meantime, you see, I'm actually processing through all those deletes. But the thing we will shortly support at the end of the preview and global availability is we'll actually sync things down, and I won't even be able to delete them. I'll be able to read them, and I'll be able to choose not to sync them or selectively unsync them. But you'll be able to manage that security permissions through the things you do every day, which is Finder and File Explorer. Awesome. Woo. All right. Now, talked a lot about team sites and shared folders. I don't want you to get the feeling that we've actually forgot about OneDrive for Business. We're not done there, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to switch back to my PC. All right. So a handful of you went to Jason's talk last year, and you heard us talk about reliability, reliability, reliability. One of the things you might have noticed is Jason was pretty much the only one here from Sync at Ignite. We actually weren't sure he was going to make it back. That was one reason to send one. It was 50-50. I mean, we were happy we got him back. But the other reason was we actually empowered the entire team. The entire team, we locked ourselves in a building and said, we need to generate the product that you all deserve. And we have been focused on that nonstop. And I'd say, raise your hand if you work on OneDrive Sync. There we go. See, let's give these guys a hand. So we're here in much greater numbers, and we'll keep showing up in much greater numbers. We've really cracked the back of reliability, and now we're taking the time to add the set of features that really make it that much easy to go in your existing workflow, to add new workflows. And we kind of think of this in two unique pivots. The first one is with IT. both making sync easier to deploy and manage. And then the second one is in your everyday users, making it much easier for you to interact with. And I'm going to kind of walk through the set of features that we have done for each of those to make your lives that much easier. So the first one, I will say, this is the example of the non-demo demo. So I was able to set up my OneDrive for Business on this machine and my team sites, even though I am already enrolled in conditional access. Tony and Pat will walk you through this tomorrow. They have set the rules on me that I have to be domain join. I have to be up on my AV. Are you going to set any more rules tomorrow that I should know about? Okay, so maybe. But all of those policies I'm compliant with. And I'm able to go ahead and set up sync. And that's that thing there where we look at making sync ubiquitous. It has that powerful reaction of, we can enable you to get all your files anywhere on the planet and be productive. And depending on how you say that, it is either a huge value add or terrifying. So we've done the work to make sure you can do that and you can control all your files only on these devices. And that's coming into preview shortly. The other one in here is Windows Information Protection. We always want to innovate on the latest and greatest version of Windows. And what Windows 10 Anniversary just shipped is called Windows Information Protection. And this is the idea, if I've set up sync or multiple sync clients, it's helping me keep my enterprise information in the right sync client and keeping it from drifting away. You can see here, I can actually right-click and, whoops. I can right-click and I have this file ownership, and I'm able to see this is clearly a Microsoft-owned thing. And Pat and Tony will walk through this a little bit more of how this works when it leaks out of there and helping users do the right thing. All right. The other one and Jason touched on this a little bit, reliability, reliability, reliability. We spent a year focusing on this, and we're really never going to lose that focus again. But report a problem, the ability for something to go wrong and to be able to put the problem back with the people who really own it. So say I'm a normal user and something about sync doesn't make sense to me. I can just go ahead, I can right-click and report a problem. And here, I'm actually able to describe everything about it. So what's my problem? All right. So maybe OneDrive can help me. Microsoft, they can do a lot. Maybe that's the thing it does. And what's happening right now is OneDrive is actually creating a ticket in our system, logging it with engineering, making sure we have the right logs. As a matter of fact, here you can even see if you're a consultant and you've set up multiple accounts, we actually give you the confirmation right here that, hey, this is for my Ed A at Contoso. Love Contoso. They've been really good to me. And it's off. And you actually see I had Outlook open. I actually already have a help ticket in my inbox, that kind of instant gratification of, you had a problem, we listened, and we're starting that dialogue. Now, of course, there are cases where this isn't prudent in your environment. We absolutely understand this. This is our attempt to make sure we always own the burden of supporting the product. Where it makes sense for your organization, you can absolutely turn this feature off, and you can be the first line of defense and support, and you can come to us and say, here's what we're seeing globally.
When the user does that, do we as admins know if the user's having a problem or only you guys?
Tony's going to talk about that a little bit in his session tomorrow. Now, the last piece I want to talk about is actually a little bit of a hidden Easter egg in here, and if you've paid attention to my screen, you might see it. So if I go to this PC, the thing that actually looks different about my PC is my desktop and documents folder here have a green check mark on it. The core thing there is I've used document redirection to go ahead and redirect what is my desktop and what is my documents into OneDrive for Business. And this is all about taking over a workflow that users constantly do today. They use their documents folder, they use their desktop folder. That is where they are. And the idea of moving that into OneDrive and making it available on your phone, making it available on your website, that is the thing that actually enables people to actually put the right content in there. And we've already published a white paper on how to do this. This is really the long-term journey. Jason talked about seamless deployment. Tony and Pat are going to talk more and more about it. This is the journey we're continuing to go on to do more there. But just to show you, so I've got a local file here called a big project. And whoops, I'm going to go ahead and drop it on the desktop. And you actually see it's immediately starting to sync. And I can go here. I can go into my activity view. It's, oh, actually, sorry, we were too fast. But I can even go up here. I can right-click, view it online. This is now on the web. I can work on the web. I can work on my phone. It's all, OneDrive is where all my data is. Now, I do want to say something there. That was actually a really fast upload, because again, performance, performance, performance. We're going to focus on that. Believe it or not, it could have gone way faster. And the reason I say that is if I come here and right-click on the sys tray and go into Settings and Network, you see actually part of the Network tab is disabled because Pat and Tony, again, have deployed group policy on me, and I can only take up a certain percentage of bandwidth on this machine. And this is one where we've actually been really thoughtful about how we've done it. One of the challenges with bandwidth limiting is if you take it down too low, everybody has just that 3 meg file, that really important file. And if you make that take forever, that's a huge challenge. So one of the things we did is a balance of making sure we're only really limiting long-running uploads. So gigabytes, terabytes, that's what we limit. But we actually have this little window that we use every 10 minutes to go full speed to both understand how fast your network is at that point and to allow small changes to go through so you're up to date and you actually feel responsive versus actually paying the penalty across the boards. Now lastly, I want to talk a little bit about things we've done to improve for users and IWs. So first, and this is one we've gotten a lot of feedback about. Actually, honoring the NTFS file properties is really, really important. The date you worked on something is absolutely critical. You see here on this machine, the date modified says 9/17. And if I actually add the date created here, you'll see it's 9/20 because I set this machine up after I worked on this. Honoring date modified we do across the web, we do it across every sync thing. No longer will we actually miss this piece of data and overwrite it. So this is all about honoring what you put in the file at the right time. And so the other piece in this that we've hit on a couple times, again, Activity Center, everything that I've just showed you, you see actually in real time what the sync engine has been doing. I can even go up here and delete, and you'll see that start to turn almost instantaneously. And there you go. I get that feedback to the user, so if I wonder what's going on, they can tell me. And then the last one is pause. And Jason's actually covered a lot about pause, so I'll be relatively quick here. But you see here, I have the right times. I'm able to actually just have to do a little bit about work. I can say pause for 2 hours, about the time of a movie. Pause for 8 hours, about the time from I get out of security check line to the time I land in Atlanta. All of these things are just little tweaks we're making to the experience to both empower you and empower users across the board. So that's about the set of the demos. It looks like I am about 5 minutes over. Jason, you're back on.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Ed. Everyone, a round of applause for Ed. Thank you so much. All right. We're a tad over, so I'm going to quickly wrap up here as we go through this. We'll do Q&A kind of outside because the next set of people will come in, and we'll be on the show floor all week. So anytime you have a question, please come by the OneDrive for Business booth. We're happy to talk about sync. Quick recap on timeline. Windows Information Protection you can begin using today with the OneDrive Sync client. Administrative bandwidth controls, again, available today. Performance improvements, those are constantly coming, and as Ed mentioned, over the last year, we've more than doubled our performance in sync. The Activity Center will be rolling out shortly, but you can start using it if you begin playing with the previews. The Mac deployment package will be in preview very shortly, and of course, conditional access and team side sync preview are available to start playing with today. We hope you will take advantage of that and give us feedback. By the end of the year, we'll deliver on that Mac deployment package, on team side sync, on conditional access. You can expect all of those to come together, and you can start deploying them with your end users. And of course, going forward into 2017, pound a percent, near and dear to our hearts, long file paths, RMS sync, and a whole lot more are coming. We hope that you'll be using OneDrive and enjoying it for all of those capabilities. Real quick, OneDrive Sync is here. It's fast, it's reliable. You should be using it. We hope you are, and we hope you're telling us how it works. Team Site Sync are available. You can go and download from our handy dandy shorter URL. And of course, more coming. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you on the show floor.
Yeah. Come to Pat and Tony's talk tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
9 a.m. It's going to be awesome.